888-743-3751 or go online at www.sharerecovery.com.
Listen to KCAA Loma Linda for less confrontation and more information.
Welcome to U-Turn Radio. Here at U-Turn Radio, we believe in big-hearted communities and small government. Join your hosts, Nadia Renner, Tom Murphy, and Eric Steinman, as we work to put local governments on a diet and champion the charities that support your community. So come on, join us and let's turn it around.
Welcome to U-Turn. Happy Sunday. Beautiful day in the neighborhood today. Such a gorgeous day. Happy Sunday. Welcome to U-Turn. If this is your first time listening or tuning in, like it said before, we believe in big-hearted communities and small governments here at U-Turn.
Yeah, we think that local governments are they are growing too big, and we'd like to help constrain that.
That's right, and we have an amazing show today. The title for today's show is "So Who is Paying?", which I find it interesting and informative when it comes to who is paying these people funds, or how do you want to break it down, Tom?
Well, you know that it's interesting. It's all emphasis when you say a sentence, right? So you could say it. So, who is paying? Like give me some information here, or you could say it. So, who is paying? Which is a different question.
I like the second one.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, out of the gate, it's going to be more of the first.
Oh, okay.
Because you got to answer kind of the who is paying to get to the who is paying. So that's what we're going to kind of do out of the gate here. We're going to try to answer.
And just for the slower ones of us, that's referring to what's on paper for people paying, and then who is really paying behind the scenes. Is that where we're going on?
That's kind of our first.
Because we're on our lucky show 13. We're going to get it all right today.
Oh,
that
absolutely.
is right.
All right.
Hey, 100% accuracy on this show all the time.
All right.
Every time.
We're gonna talk about who's funding local politics, how much they're putting in, what are they investing, what are their interests, and then how does it affect you, the taxpayer,
right,
doing your job.
And here at U-Turn too, all of our listeners that call in get rewarded. That's right. If you call in, we will spin the wheel and you can win from hundreds to thousands of dollars on behalf of your favorite charity. You heard that right. We gave out, what was it, $1,300 last Sunday?
Yes.
So, I mean, you can definitely call in 909-792-5222. That's 909-792-5222. Or you can email us at info@uturnradio.com. And I'm so excited because you can also tweet us. Tweet at uturn_radio. So you can definitely get a hold of us.
That is really cool that they can do that now, except I just realized I'm not monitoring our tweet feed. So I'm going to have to change my setup.
Well,
so if you tweet us, we'll get to you, but I can do it.
Okay, and if you don't know how, I'll teach you, Tom. And also, you can find all of the past episodes that we've had here on U-Turn at www.uturnradio.com. That's www.uturnradio.com. So we have, like I said, a great show today. How am I going to say it? So who is paying?
So this is part of the show where it's, so who's paying? Okay, so we're gonna kind of just talk about the basic facts, what's on paper. But I'm gonna lead out with a little bit of a question for you guys. Give me some names of someone or an organization that you might think had contributed to a campaign. This last primary campaign. Give me a name of a business or something like that.
I don't know, but I'm gonna take a wild guess, and I'm gonna say that maybe like police or fire department will donate some type of money to somebody?
Yeah, definitely
okay.
some of that.
Ding, ding, ding.
Doing good so far. Yep. Yeah. Any other ideas? Big companies?
Big companies? Like, could it be restaurants? Do restaurants get involved in these type of things?
I didn't see any particulars in restaurants.
Huh.
It's kind of interesting, and I will admit this is kind of a unique situation, but we had donations from Philip Morris ATRE, the tobacco people.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, American Beverage Association. We had Big Pharma, Amgen, and AstraZeneca. If you go to the county's website and look at the reports, there's actually a candidate that raked in quite a bit of money from large corporations like that, and a whole variety of PACs, political action committees, everything from dentists, California PAC for dentists, to what was it, grain and feed PAC. So you had this situation.
Well, those are the political action committees. As far as directly donating, it's kind of the list of deadly sins, right? You got tobacco, you got opium addiction, and
which is actually
gambling and
pretty
that type
interesting
of
because that list comes from a candidate that actually didn't win, Mark Steinorth, who, remember, he was an assemblyman. He was a California assemblyman, and he kind of looked at the writing on the wall. And said, okay, I'm not going to run for re-election as an assemblyman. I'm going to go down to the county and I'm going to run for county supervisor. But what you can do as a politician, if you got a war chest, in other words, if you got a campaign fund with you,
mm-hmm.
you can take it kind of wherever you go. So if you look at his reports, there's this bunch of money that he transferred from his California Assembly war chest that now became part of his San Bernardino County war chest. So
yeah, something that doesn't make any sense unless you think about it in terms of what helps us keep all these people on the reservation, right? They're going to be termed out, but we don't want them in their last term saying, "I got nothing to lose. I'm going to pass some real laws that benefit people," instead of the deadly sins.
Yeah, you can.
If you let them take their campaign war chest and move that to another campaign that they haven't been termed out at, or something after the fact, then they're always looking for campaign contributions, even that last time they're running where they're termed out of office.
Yeah.
So you never get somebody sitting in there that is not influenced by the ability of money, and that's where those type of rules come from that don't make any sense. Why does it make any sense to allow somebody to switch their money that was given to them to run for the state legislature to a campaign for the state or for the county supervisor? A whole different group of affected people that, if you believe that like this Supreme Court thing says that it's part of your First Amendment right to give money to people to express your view in terms of the political action that may result. These Philip Morris and AstraZeneca and Amgen and the Barona Band Indians don't really have a dog in the fight in San Bernardino County. They gave that to this Steinhardt guy for running for the state legislature. And he's able to take it and move it, but that's how they keep people always affected by the money that's contributed to them.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because if you look at that statement, you see the money that's coming into the state. You see who's, if you will, who's influencing at the state level.
Now, how much money are we talking about for each kind of like business? Does it matter depending on the type of influence they want, and that's the type of money that they're giving?
Well, here's the California law, the California Fair Political Practices Commission. I think I got that right. CFPPC. It's basically the law that that governs money and how it's used in political campaigns. So, giving directly to a candidate-controlled committee, you're limited, or an organization is limited to $4,400 per election.
Oh, okay.
So there's a primary, and then there's a a general election, and if you, as a politician, are involved in both of those, Amgen could stroke you a check for $4,400 for the primary, and then if you make it through the general, they could stroke you a check for $4,400, and that's it.
And that's the max, we could say, right?
For a candidate-controlled committee.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And that's only control. So there's no control. You can give however much money you want.
Yeah. So you have candidate-controlled committees, and I just described those, and then you have recipient committees, and these are committees that form and they can, if you will, kind of do whatever they want in terms of their political desires. They just have to tell everybody about it.
Okay, it has to be public.
That's kind of my version of the California law. You can do what you want, but you got to tell everybody what you're doing, how much you're spending, where it's coming from. The bottom line, California law requires everybody to know where the original donation came from and who it went to and how it was spent. So the whole money, if you will, supply chain. So what we did for this show was we looked at a specific period of time, and we looked at from the 1st of January to about mid-May, and we looked specifically just
2018.
Right, 2018. So it kind of covers up to the preparation for the primary here in San Bernardino County, and we looked only at what I call loosely local money. And what I meant by that is the county is state law. If more than 70% of your money is spent in a single county, your all your election reporting goes to the county. The state doesn't really care about it. So what I did was I downloaded the county's spreadsheet and kind of went through it and then went through the reports. So these are the committees in San Bernardino County that spent more than 70% of their finances in the county alone, from the beginning of May through about the beginning of January through about mid-May. So
of this year.
Yeah. So that's our snapshot.
Okay.
And that's what we looked at. So we can kind of get into the results if you want. I'll kind of rattle through it pretty quickly. There's 12 candidate control committees, and there's 5 recipient committees. And for the 12 candidate control and that's like Mike Ramos for DA 2018, Lovingood for Supervisor 2020, and I'll explain why the 2020 is there. But so those campaigns brought in about $1.4 million, and they expended about $1.7 million in that time period that we talked about.
From January
to
May.
Yeah. And then for the recipient committees, they brought in about $1.1 million and expended about that much. So that's how that's, if you will, the volume over the from January through the lead-in, if you will, to the primary election.
That's a lot of money for those short months, if you ask me. We're talking about, you said 1.4 million, right?
Well, and that's just in the candidate-controlled committees, and if you kind of sum it up,
it's way more than that.
Well, what's interesting is, one of the people that as a show we support, the San Bernardino County Mission, right? They spent $1.57 to feed somebody.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, at $1.57, the first 4.5 months on politics, that's $1.6 million worth of meals, or excuse me, 1.6 million meals that they could have.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And that's there was a.
They're spending at a level that's more than it would take to feed all the homeless people in the county. Is that the point on that?
Yeah, there's another study. They said there's about 2,100 homeless people in the county. We could have fed them for 261 days, three squares a day, at the mission price for that 2.6 million in local money. That's that's been spent or that was spent in the run-up to the primary election.
So who are like the donors, the ones that give money to these people? Like, I'm assuming it's not just businesses either, right?
Right. No, that's a great question, and this is very the answer to that question is very subjective. What I did was I just kind of went through the forms that California requires in terms of reporting, and just kind of got a general feel. And so the general feel is there's the small donor, the little guy, I'll say, somebody that's contributing $100 to $500 a month, or not a month, a donation, if you will. And then the next category I'll call the business and professional crowd. This is very general, is like $500 to $1,500. You see G&A printing, $500.
Kind of like more like smaller businesses, maybe, if not.
Yeah, John Doe law firm, $1,500. And then the next category are what I call the influencers, and these are folks that probably have an agenda. And that was
kind of like what you mentioned before, like the tobacco and like those type of, when you say they have an agenda,
exactly.
The influencers would kind of fall under that type of money or
yeah,
donor, I would
exactly.
say.
So you see a donation of $4,400 made to two or three supervisor, or there was only two or a couple of the supervisors from. I can't remember the name of it, but it was an ambulance company, and I didn't look into it, but probably most likely if you check that out, that ambulance company has an involvement or a desire to be involved in some of the contracts that the county lets for services.
And that's what we were talking about last week. That what really needs to happen is. Taking a donation, no problem. Voting on something in behalf of the people who gave the donation, you have to go at that from the standpoint of the elected official who took the donation. If you take the donation, you should be recusing yourself from anything in support of the people who gave you the donation. It's the only way the people are going to get their interests put first.
Yeah, and Nadia, you want to do a quick recap?
Yeah, I was just going to say that last week we had a show and we were talking about usually, and I agreed because Eric brought up this point, where when you get money, if you're running for a supervisor and they donate money, we were saying that it would be best not to be influenced and tell the supervisor what you have on your agenda, because it almost seems like I'm just giving this money to you because this is what I want. And it goes back and forth type of deal without being a deal. But that's kind of like the understanding that they would have. So what we were talking about, it's like, if you're going to donate that money, donate it because you believe in the changes that they want to do as supervisors by themselves, and not necessarily say, oh, I want this in return. And that's kind of like what we touched on last week, and that's what we're referring to as far as the influencers also having an agenda, and that's why they donate that money.
Yeah.
And in my take on it is, asking people to do that is one thing. Another thing is taking it further and making the people should vote on a sense of the people that they want their people in elected office to be governed by the same standards that, for instance, govern a lot of professional societies. Like if you're a CPA, for instance, you can lose your license over not just violating a conflict of interest, but by doing something that creates the appearance of violating a conflict of interest. And so, for instance, if somebody donated to someone for supervisor, it's not just that they shouldn't ask that supervisor to do anything. It's they should do it knowing that if anything ever comes before that supervisor has to step out. It doesn't mean that whatever action needs to come before the board of supervisors can't get voted on. It just has to be voted on by people who have not taken any contributions from that person. So if somebody who thinks they're going to influence things by donating to all the board of supervisors as a group could never take any action on their behalf.
Which, now that we're talking about this and the way that you broke down the people that donate money, Tom, the little guy, like let's just say I'm the citizen and I'm giving out about $100 to $500 to a supervisor that I believe in. Technically, that supervisor, I can't go to that supervisor and say, hey, here's $500, but can you help me get this permit to build a back room, process or faster?
No, that would be illegal.
That's probably $2,000 to do
that.
But that's what I'm saying. What my point is, like, it's almost unfair that if a business or like the influencer comes and says here's like $4,000, they have an agenda, then me as a citizen, if I'm giving $100 or $500, I kind of want an agenda too. But I know that's not going to happen because we're talking about little money.
That can happen because if you've given your $100 or $500 at a dinner party that was thrown by a certain individual on behalf of somebody who's running for office, then that individual who had that dinner party and you gave that contribution, they have the access because they, in general, over a bunch of people, maybe raised $1,000 and $5,000, $10,000 or something for that person running for office. So when you want access, then you go talk to that person who asked you to come to the dinner party and say, hey, I really could use some help, and then they in turn ask for the help.
Oh,
that's the way it works at that level. You don't get the direct access. You got to step up a couple rungs on the Tom Murphy ladder of contributors.
Before you.
But it doesn't mean that you don't
that's
have
interesting.
a way to. Yes, and
right.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get anything big. They're going to be looking for a little more the way it's currently structured. Then
that's why I just set a permit just to build one room. That's it. Nothing big.
No, you'll still be waiting down at the building department 2 hours before they'll even talk to you.
Nadia, are you doing an add-on?
No, I'm not, by the way. And if I do, I already know how to go about it. I'll go sit in the building department for 2 hours. I got it.
We would want you to admit any conflict of interest that you might have. So that we can, and quick before we go to break, the last category would I termed the elephants, and these are the folks that are coming in, not to the candidate controlled committees, but to the PACs, to the political action committees, and some entirely fund an entire PAC because they want to do something in the county or wherever they're funding, and they come in with a large checkbook and try to kind of, if you will, buy the election. And when I say buy the election, I don't mean illegally, but they're able to put out so much information that the voters see their message 4, 5, 6 times as compared to 1 to 2 times from whoever they might be competing against, and that's how the elephant, if you will, operates.
That's interesting. So why don't we do this? We go into a commercial break, and then we can discuss how this money is spent once they are funded, once the supervisors are funded from these different people that we just covered. So we're going to take a break. This is U-Turn Radio.
We'll be right back to U-Turn after this commercial break. Don't go away.
Come soar with us. We're Zip Lines, located in the San Gabriel Mountains, right next to Mountain High Ski Resort. We offer the thrill of a lifetime, zipping through one of our 2 zip courses that are literally built in the trees. Our Canopy Tour is one of the most ambitious zip line courses in the nation, offering heights of up to 300 feet above the forest floor and lengths of over 1,500 feet. Our mountaintop tour provides another amazing zip line experience and, as a bonus, a very unique experience. Imagine leaping off a tree platform in a controlled free fall. Now, imagine doing it twice. These are not for the faint of heart, but we know you have the right stuff to soar with us. For further information, please visit our website at ziplinesPC.com. That's ziplinesPC.com. You can make sure we hold a place for you by selecting your tour package and date online. That's ziplinesPC.com. Come soar with us.
When the night winds blow and the time moves so slow and the leaves move gently in the trees, as the daylight fades in the moon's early haze, My thoughts of you go racing like the breeze. Well, there's not a time where you don't cross my mind. We seem to be one and the same. But it's been 5 years since I've held you dear, just before you took that midnight train. Oh, that train is a devil that took my love from me and left me in this prison. Oh, Lord, set me free of the chains that bind me, so I might finally see. Oh, that train is a devil that took my love from me and left me in this prison. Oh, Lord, set me free of the chains that bind me, so I might finally see. Well, the moon turns the tide, and I know I must decide, but your leaving haunts my memory. And the smoke from the stacks says you ain't coming back. I close my eyes, your face is all I see. Oh, that train is a devil that took my love from me and left me in this prison. Oh, Lord, set me free of the chains that bind me, so I might finally see.
Tom, Nadia, and Eric are back with more only on the U-Turn radio show right here on KCAA.
That song was Devil Train, a song off the Blue Skies and Red Wine album. The songs off the album were written by two local artists, Coyote Keene and Gail Dowling. As part of an effort to showcase local talent, Coyote and Gail's songs were paired with the best musicians in Nashville, the longtime capital of country music, could offer. The result is the soul-touching songs on Blue Skies and Red Wine album. You can download the album at mountainmusic.net. That is www.mountainmusic.net. Additionally, if you're interested in scheduling either artist for a live performance, point your browser over to mountainmusic.net. Once you get there, select the artist tab. Both artists have a short bio along with the contact information at that location. And of course, let them know U-Turn Radio sent you. Before the commercial break, we were discussing and we were going over the groups that fund local politics in San Bernardino County. And we were covering who usually gives or funds the money. We went over, what was it, like 5 different type of people that usually donate to the supervisors. Right?
Very general characterization.
Right. And now we're going to get into how it's spent.
Okay. Let me ask you, if you had $250,000, what would you do with it? How would you spend it?
I would do a lot of things, but if it's for the county, I would try to look.
No, I didn't.
Or just in general?
Yeah, I didn't put that constraint on you. What would you do if you had $250,000?
Actually, you know what I would really do? I would open a little clothing store here in San Bernardino. That's what I would do.
Okay.
Oh,
So a little
boy.
free enterprise there. I like
Not
that.
very fast you wouldn't do that. First you'd have to go get a permit to open that thing.
Oh my God,
Don't be
Eric!
in a hurry to go open that clothing store. I know some people tried to open a place to serve beer in Wrightwood. It was 3 years.
I could have said shopping, but I want. I really want my
If
clothing
you
store.
get
I
a
really
storefront, you got to get a permit, girl. That's going to take you some time.
You
Gotta go wait in line.
That's it.
do. Should I start
Go
Monday?
wait in line with your lords and masters down at the county.
Well, there goes my dream.
Well,
Okay,
maybe
well.
if you take some of that money and give it to somebody at the county, you might get that time shortened.
Can somebody invite me to those fancy dinners?
Yes.
Please.
Okay. So anyway, let's see. So, well, we're going to talk a little bit about how politicians expended their funds, and it's actually to a certain extent it's pretty boring. So I'm going to go pretty quick through the one section, and they spend it a lot on what I call standard campaign expenditures. So it seemed like everybody paid a consultant something, anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000, and then mailers, and then posters, Facebook bills. So it's kind of it's like, okay, that's
kind of like promotions, right?
Yeah,
to promote
exactly.
themselves.
Yeah.
And those are I see these. I remember when we were going to vote for supervisors, I used to see them almost in every corner. There was a lot of posters for each person individually, and that was one thing that I was thinking. I was like, there's a lot of money going into these promotions because just the cost of printing that out and putting them literally in every corner. I'm assuming that's a good chunk of money.
If you had been a small donor, your $100 to $500 would have gone.
Probably cover that.
Yeah, that type of thing. So it's always kind of interesting to take a closer look at some of the outliers or kind of the weird things. So one of the things I noticed was the Loving Good for Supervisor 2020 expended during this time period in excess of $25,000. And I'm kind of scratching my head at this, going
2020.
Yeah, why? This is a 2018 election.
Is he living in the future?
Yeah, I don't know. Why would somebody spend if 2 years from now you're going to need a big chunk of change to go out and buy Facebook ads and that type of thing? Why would you spend $25,000 2 years early?
That makes no sense.
Eric has an answer. I can tell by the look on his face.
Eric, you want to explain that to us?
He's like Shark Tank, waiting to jump in on this one.
That if he's running in 2020, he is going to need a chunk of money, and there are campaign limitations. But one way of getting around them is supervisors give money from their campaign to another supervisor's campaign. That way, there's pretty much the assurance that those people are going to give that money back to you when it's time for your campaign. So you're in a different election cycle. You've now taken that $4,400 limit, for the primary and a $4,400 for the general election, and you've made that. Well, I can do $4,400 in this election and this election. But you've also said I can do $4,400 in this election to this supervisor and $4,400 to this supervisor, and then they're going to combine in this election and they'll combine back in the other election. They'll give from their campaign back to the others. So that's why you see all these transfers going around, and you have the benefit of getting entree to multiple supervisors, adding more money to the effort that you want to make happen than is allowed by just kind of being straight up about it, if you would ask me. But that time stuff goes on, and the other thing that would make sense, I guess, from Robert Lovingood's standpoint would be if he does have an agenda, money talks. Now I think it's incumbent on the citizens to take that away, but if he wants to get something done, he's got to have other supervisors vote with him on it. And this is a way of building some consensus within the group of supervisors. So who do you give that money to, Tom? Do we know that?
He gave a max donation of $4,400 to both Supervisor Hagman and Supervisor Rutherford. So basically he supported the people that were on the board with him.
And you can do that. You can kind of split. There's no rules. Like if you
you're limited because it's Canada.
No, right. As far as the money,
$4,400.
But as far as like giving them to both parties, it doesn't matter.
So who do you said he gave $25,000? That's you got another $15,000 to
his total expenditures. So there was the two max donations. He gave some kind of donation to the Republican Party. I don't remember I could dig it out if you want. If you guys want to keep talking while I look it up. And then there's typically kind of a maintenance fee, I guess I'd call it. You some to your lawyer, some to your consultant, but I don't know specifically what he donated to. But another interesting
one. Well, I don't know if my thing was an answer. That was just maybe what I believe is the reason that happens. But it happens enough that there's certainly a reason. I can't think of another explanation.
Oh, and you can see
I
it.
don't claim to be an expert in cross-campaign donation technology.
This is just your opinion.
The county sheriff also was running unopposed, right? and he spent $31,000, and some of that was to support Ramos running for DA and Ramos running for assemblyman. So there is that, it's within limits. It's certainly legal.
You're part of the law enforcement club, and you're kind of expected to show solidarity there.
It's almost more if you're part of the government club. If you're in, it's like, hey, let's spend a little money on
each other out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The other kind of interesting one was
McMahon's a fellow Sun Devil. I got to point out that's the sheriff. Went to the Apple Valley High School. Same as somebody else.
Oh, so you guys ran together, if you will.
So if there's something wrong going on there, we know that there's something wrong in the system, which is our point. It's not the people. He's a Sun Devil.
Gotta get that school.
And there is something wrong. I hear they're spending $500,000 in funds to train a police officer. And that makes no sense. $500,000.
$500,000.
And that's a quote from Hagman, no less. He said, they spent $500,000 to train a police officer.
To train one, not like a few. One person.
Not like Police Academy, that movie. Are you training everybody?
That's what I'm thinking. I'm like the whole team.
No, wow. It's just per police officer. I don't know
what does this type of training consist of?
I don't know, but I think it's probably less to train a airline pilot or an astronaut.
Pretty expensive. Pilots are pretty expensive.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, not that police aren't important, but you cannot train somebody for $500,000 and not be hostage to all kinds of stuff. That just doesn't make any sense. You better have a long-term contract. And most pilots get trained where, Tom?
The military.
Being a pilot? Yeah.
No, the military training.
And what's the quid pro quo, if you want to call it, for getting trained there in the military?
You give your life away for 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
You got a time commitment there. You're not going to go work for somebody else.
Yeah, But how long was the training, for example, to be a pilot? Like how many months?
Oh, in the Navy's efficient scheduling, it took them a year to get me from beginning to end. And I'm being
1 year.
And I'm being cynical. Or sarcastic. It wasn't efficient.
You mean before you started training, it was a year?
No, it took about a year from when I started training as a pilot to when I got my wings of gold.
I'm just trying to figure out $500,000 for how long are you training this one person for?
That's again, I don't know that to be true. That was told to me by somebody who should know it to be true because they're in charge of the $5 billion, $6 billion county budget, but. If that's what's going on, what's missing is something like Tom's experience. In the military puts that much money into you. You're required to work for them for a period of time.
Right.
Here, they are not required to work for a period of time. So a city, for instance, can not train anybody and instead just hire the person that the county's already trained, and they're $500,000 ahead on day one. And that's a problem where the people losing on it are the citizens of the county who have spent that money to train somebody, and it should be allowed that you're able to restrict somebody's employment options so you can get a payback on that type of money you're going to put into somebody, in my opinion. Now, all these people in the public employee unions would disagree with that. They would like to be free to go wherever, but it just really doesn't make any sense at all. If you're the public, to be paying that kind of money and then just having them leave, right?
Yeah.
If you put all that in.
There should be a payback time.
You just need less trained people, or you got to do something different.
Or maybe reduce budget if they're not going to be held
I don't know what they're doing for $500,000 because they seem to keep getting in trouble, and then another multiple $20 million settle this, $20 million settle that thing ends up back over at the supervisors at the end of all that. So they're not doing it right in a good manner. But as I said, we can't lay that at the feet of John McMahon because he is a Sun Devil.
Right. Go Sun Devils.
To circle back, I got another question for you. So one of the races, Ensign Mason ran for auditor, controller, treasurer, tax collector, right? And he I'm going to say loaned himself. He got loans to finance his campaign from Mason Financial Services. So I'm assuming he took money out of his business. I don't know, certain, but I'm assuming he took money out of his business, loaned himself $100,000 to run for office. Why would somebody, I mean, unless you were like really, really dedicated to the cause, why would somebody loan themselves $100,000 to go run for office, knowing that, you might not win?
They believe in themselves, maybe, that much. Why would
or
you loan yourself?
they're the president of a group that has an Indian casino, and they do.
Oh,
well, why worry about going out and collecting campaigns? you got a little access to money there. But in general, what you're going to run into is in my opinion, again, I don't think you can take money in a campaign and turn around and do whatever you want. And that's how people get in trouble. You see about it on the news. They took campaign funds and then they went and got a diamond ring for their girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever. They misused their campaign funds. But if you give the money to your campaign, then that money's never coming back, because you can't do that. One of the things you can do with campaign funds is not giving it to yourself for any personal reason if you want to buy a boat. But if you loan it to your campaign, then if your campaign gets enough money, they can pay that loan back, and then you can go buy your boat. And what generally happens when people get elected, there is no end to campaign funds for the reasons we're talking about. People want to use the money to influence things. You want to give some money so that you can build your addition and not have to wait 2 hours just to get talked to at the building department and pay them about probably $17,000 is my guess what that would probably take. So, people want that, so they're go give contributions all the time. Once you're elected, you don't have to worry about I might be giving it to the wrong guy. This guy that's elected, and if he's loaned all that money to his campaign fund, he can take the money he gets after he's elected and pay it all back, go buy his boats. It's pretty straightforward process the way I envision it. Again, that's just what I believe would be common sense.
But let's just say if he doesn't win and he loans himself money, how does that then work? If he were
not very well.
No, I mean I'm assuming that, but I mean it's now you just owe yourself money.
There is a box on the form where you can forgive a loan, I think. So I guess you just forgive your own.
Well, then you carry that over the same way Steinort can take his election fund and go run for the legislator and go run for supervisor. You can carry over. Murphy 2016 to Murphy 2020 and run again and keep building up those loans. Eventually you might get elected, just like one guy we ran 4 times where he got elected for that $461,000 job now.
I think it was him. I think it was Ensign Mason.
Yeah, now he's got $461,000. It was a good investment, and if he's got he's probably getting a lot of contributions now by people who are want a correct assessment of their property and from his assessor function.
No.
I guess that makes sense.
No, he's auditor, controller, treasurer, tax collector. There's
somebody else the assessor. He's not everything. Okay,
no.
Just 4.
Just 4, not 5. Okay. Don't give him 5. Give him 4 positions.
Okay. Well, he's probably getting contributions now, and he can probably go pay those loans back. So I don't think it's and I may be wrong, but I don't think it's limited to one election term. I think you can keep carrying that forward.
I got you. Okay.
But a lot of it is just the price of poker. You got to fund yourself a campaign that's competitive, and if you can't go out and raise a contribution somewhere else, you get them from yourself, or you might get outspent.
Yeah, no, you can carry forward. The Democratic supervisor Gloria McLeod, she brought in $7,700 during this period. How can you run a campaign on $7,000? Well, she expended is close to 120 maybe thousand. It's like, where did that money come from? And exactly right. She rolled it over from an earlier campaign, and it was available to her. So that was kind of the the candidate controlled committees and kind of how they spent their money. Then you move on to the elephants, which are the recipient committee expenditures. And we have the Business Leaders for Fair and Ethical Government to support Anderson and oppose Ramos for DA. So this is a political action committee. They spent $817,624. About 257 of that was to support Anderson, and the rest, 537,000, was to oppose Ramos, and then administrative costs for mailers and all that type of thing. But so you get this, if you will, you have now an elephant campaign where somebody's spending upwards of $800,000 in 4.5 months purely to support the candidate that's running for district attorney opposing
now,
the guy who's
is that just citizens that were wandering around on the street and came together wanting to support some ethical conduct in government?
Oh, absolutely. If you look at the
I think that's probably some people involved with what we talked about not being ethical, or certainly creating a perception of conflict of interest last time. Would that be accurate?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The let me flip over to the other slide here, but Jeff Burham during this period collectively donated about $280,000. A builder who I'm going to kind of just assume was probably associated with kind of the whole colonies effort, he donated $245,000, and then a co-owner of the Chevy dealer. I see that name kind of show up a lot in the same columns where you see a Burham donation, and he gave quite a bit of money into this. So it's not Nadia trying.
Well, we don't know the whole
spend
association with them, but
no,
we do know that amount of money going in is sending a message, and they went after the district attorney in the message, and they were successful. And the message is, if we do what you went after us for last time, don't try and do it again, because if you're the district attorney and go after us, you're going to get money's going to come to play against you, and you're going to get removed from office, which is what happened to Ramos. And we don't believe that Ramos is. We don't really know a lot about him, but there's certainly a lot said about him that he was not any saint or even that good a district attorney or anything. Maybe good that he's out of there, but he should be out of there by the people, getting good information, making their own decision, not having that much money brought to bear on him in a retaliatory thing, because now we have stage 2, which is the same people going back and trying to influence the supervisors with campaign contributions for or against them, so that they can get another settlement. They're asking for another settlement, which from my way of thinking is, any contribution you give, that person can't even vote on a settlement regarding you. But that's not the way it works. Whoever they give money to can and will vote on a settlement when it comes up with respect to these people who are trying to remove the people. So that's not in the interest of the people of San Bernardino County to allow that type of money to come into play on something like this. They've already paid for this once, if you want it, the $102 million settlement, and now there's a settlement that amounts collectively to over the $100 million again, and they're probably going to be asked to pay again, and that's where we kind of drew the line on it with whatever we get involved in, and that is, let's not see that this, if something has to be settled, it has to be done without any money influence being brought to bear on it. So we took some steps in the Red Brennan group to try and counter some of that, not in support of anybody in any candidate, but just to counter the money that was being brought to bear in a way that would, if they had their committee for the election of, who was it, Hagman, Steinert, and whatnot. You'd end up with 3 votes and probably a canned deal on a settlement at that point. So that didn't happen, and Janice Rutherford got elected instead, and we don't think that Janice Rutherford's any saint, but we do think that she was opposed to them and would not be influenced by the money that was being brought to bear.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things from last week's show is that apparently that $102 million settlement, the county had to finance that. So not only did the citizens have to pay out $102 million, they had to pay $102 million plus whatever interest costs.
Interest.
Yeah, and apparently there's still a contract out by the county to some financial services place to kind of manage that thing. So the citizens of the county are still spending on that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and they're not going to even be out of it and be asked to get buried under another bunch of money. So where that the flip side of that is it affects you and you and you and you, because they look for that money and they start raising fees, just like we've seen on this $157 fee. They took over the San Bernardino City fire and they couldn't pay for it, and so they look around and see who we can get to pay for it.
I was just gonna say that when they get hit, when the county gets hit with those type of what was it, $1 million, right?
$102 million.
Like you were saying, they have to pull that money because there's no budget for these type of things, because it's not like that's gonna happen, right? So then that's where you're saying like they'll usually raise different fees to us citizens, like in our taxes, and it's different things too that we probably don't even know, like parking at the airport, right? We talked about this on a previous show, where it's different fees and it could be in different areas and that we probably don't notice. It's just a small increase, but it's an increase in general where they're trying to get this money back, right?
Yeah, I certainly noticed one at the airport. They raised it about over 40% in a day. So
that's a lot.
I don't think their costs went up 40% in a day. They didn't even raise it a little bit. They have this guy Devereaux consulting with them, and right when he started, all of a sudden you see a 40% increase, and that's in my mind him saying they may not like it, but they can't do anything about it, and that's not the standard that the citizens in the county should be treated. In my book. Or
even like the DMV, I just had to pay, and it's crazy because before it would be less every time I would renew my tags, and this year it was more than last year. And so when I was looking at it, there's an extra fee that I have no idea where it's coming from. So this reminded me of the show we had, and I'm like, this is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Now I see it, and now I'm paying for this. And so anyways, that's just,
but
I'm
some
paying
people
more
think it doesn't affect me because I'm not getting hit with all these taxes. But there are some ways that it won't end up in taxes, but they just call it a fee, and it usually falls upon everybody then.
And then at the DMV, it's not like I could say, I'm not going to pay for this because then I have no car, and it's just, so it's one of those things where
it's going to hit you where you got to do it. You got a parking fee. They're going to take your car. You have this, or it's the stuff that you have to do that they get it from you.
Yeah, gas tax.
Right.
Tax gas.
You own the property already, so let's put a $157 thing on it to pay for how we misfired on this fire thing, and there's nothing you can say about it. You already own the thing, and in fact, the people collectively that own that property, they all vote for a representative. But they're all in 2 districts out of the 5 districts in the county. So the vote came down. Those 2 districts obviously voted against it, and the other 3 voted for it. So they didn't even have a say-so. The other 3 have very little unincorporated land, so it was no sweat off them. But that's where all the money was being spent at. So they said, we got a problem. Let's put it on these people. And that's the start of taxation without representation. So.
I feel you, especially after paying that fee. And like I said, there is no way out. But that kind of wraps up our show today for these type of shows and more. And I know that we also referred to the building department earlier today. We had a show on about that, and you can definitely check that out at uturnradio.com, because that was a really good one. If you guys are trying to build something, you'll get the information there and a reference to that show as well from today's show. And that was U-Turn Radio. Thank you for joining us.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
Your NBC Sports Radio update starts